where Hanan said, halacha, halacha Palestine, and those who question it like it. First part on the side, Shiva Dram Shama Admon, Ein Halacha Kiyotziba. So it's like with the 7 cases where Admon brought down this halacha. Halacha does not follow him. So the Gemara says, I'm sorry, Ein Halacha Kiyotziba. The halacha doesn't follow those Hachimo. So Halacha B'Kuru. It sounds like they're just Admon by himself. That halacha would follow him. But Rabbi Yitzchak was also understand these cases there is Admon stating halacha, and you have Rabbi Gamliel weighing in that halacha follows the Rebbe Yotzebo. The Gemara now suggesting maybe there's a distinction between when Admon says the halacha himself versus when you have Rabbi Gamliel coming along and saying, oh, the halacha follows it. The Hamar of Yitzchak ben Elazar Mishneh the Kushya. But not from Shamar Rabbi Gamliel Ron has to be halacha. So but he just said, remember, whenever the Gamliel says, I see the words of Admon to be correct, that's the halacha follows him. So the Gemara says, Amar in, lo Amar lo. It sounds like the halacha only follows Admon when Rabbi Gamliel voices his support. But if Rabbi Gamliel doesn't voice his support, then the halacha won't follow Admon. Halacha is what it means to say, Neitvan Shamar Hanan halacha k'mosef Yotzebo. That's what it means to say. Two situations, the two things that Hanan said that the halacha stopped. In 2 cases where Hanan quoted the halacha, Yotziba, others supported him, ultimately again halacha follows. Shiva Dvarim, Shamar Admon, Yeshman Shalacha Kimosef Yotziba, Yeshman Shein Halacha Kimosef, Ela Yotzebo. The choice is by Admon, there are some situations where halacha reminds that the halacha will follow him. Other times that the halacha will only follow him when he's quoting in the names of others. There is one of Shara Gamliel, Ron is the Admon, halacha Kimoso, I don't say anything Rabbi Gamliel says the halacha follows Admon, the halacha follows Admon, but not necessarily in the other cases. So the Gemara is essentially just trying to go back and forth again. You find the principle that can apply to the rulings of Admon and Hanan. I don't say, you're going to see the halacha Lamaisa, there's no overarching principle. In fact, each of these cases are reckoned independently. As we're going to see in just a moment. Then I will say, halacha Lamaisa, let's close out this subject. How do we pass brothers? This is really a great case. Money's promised, and what happened? Money's not paid. The only problem is, at the time of default, what's the status of the marriage? The status of marriage? Kedushin has already been done. So now we have a problem. So you will say, if you default before Kedushin, fine. So then what? Go get married. Everybody go home. That's it. The problem we have over here is the default happens after Kedushin before Nisur. Furthermore, 2 cases of default. What are the 2 cases of default? Case A, father default. Case B, Rachel, daughter, wife default. We'll say machlokes, Admon Kachamon. Then there's a further machlokes, Mishnah and the Brisa as to when the machlokes applies. So I'll say, here we go. Rabbi Baskins, Elchos Ishos, Tarek Achimo, Halacha Kesai. And this is something I mentioned because someone asked me a couple weeks ago. Why am I going from the Rambam and not the Shulchan? So this is not going from the Rambam and the Shulchan the same way. In general, the derech of the Rambam is that the Rambam's formulation of halacha is often much truer to the text of the Gemara. So it's just trying to establish halacha l'maisa Islamic Gemara. The Lashon of the Rambam often tethers you to the Sugya much more, whereas the Shulchan Aruch already is a distilled version of the halacha. So again, the bottom line is say the same thing. But listen to what the Rambam says. Here we go. Great case. Haposek was the Pasno. So this is great. So here's how the Shulchan sets up the case. Right? So what happened? Rachel's father, Yachel's father, we're calling Yaakov. Right? Rachel's father commits to $10,000 to Yachel's husband, to Reuben. The halacha of the Medina Achares. That's how they relate to it. Sorry? Another case. He goes like, only if you know the Baal, and you got a saki alatzi. Ma'am Yechola Lasos, O Pinot, Puspilon Vino, O Kachin Bigat. So those is number 1, we passing like Admon in the Mishnah. When it was the father who defaulted, Rachel says to her husband, listen, I didn't give you him. Either divorce me or marry me. Right? But don't keep me in the So we'll say that's halach for nice one, like Amor the Mishnah. Aval, in Husky Alatzma, in Husky Alatzma, Yada, Alezia Yoshedas, Adshet, Kinsa, Masha, Haska, or Adshet. So that's an interesting halach for nice, you keep asking like the coming in the crisis case. If she is the one who made the commitment, then ultimately she has to figure out a way to honor it. And she has no obligation to do anything until she figures out how to honor this commitment. So let's remember again, this is where she made the commitment. Remember, Admon's out for her. Was that remember again? What was Admon's out for her? What was out for her? I didn't promise. I know it was me, and I'm an extension of my father, right? So in other words, so when I said I promise you to be my father, so that I'm not asking like the coming from the crisis case, namely that when she makes the commitment, Rachel herself makes the commitment to Ruvain, and then defaults, Ruvain to keep a holding pattern of each until she comes up with the money, and ultimately again doesn't have to either marry her or divorce her. Once again, this is the legal rule. Moral etiquette: should a man ever keep a woman in a relationship over money? Absolutely not. Again, if she says, give me more time, I'm happy to go and try to figure out how to do that's fine. She wants the time. But once again, this is the legal ruling, not the moral ethical ruling. So say, halach for myself, halach for myself. Asking like Admon the Mishnah, therefore again, if father defaults, Ruvain can't hold Rachel in a relationship. If Rachel defaults, he has the ability to go into all the entire relationship. Incredible. Mishnah Bosai, very interesting case. Sha'ora ala Sada with Hazara. This was when we can get back on this. Look at Rashi. First Rashi in the Mishnah. What's Rashi in the Mishnah? So let's say in the short lines of Rashi, 2, 4, 6, 7 lines into the short lines. Rashi says, Ha'ora ala Sada. Watch this. This is fascinating. Ruvain ma'arer al Sada Shabiyad Shimon. So let's say, so here's the case. Shimon has appealed. Ruvain is claiming the field really belongs to me. It was stolen from me, and you bought it illegally. Now again, he's not accusing Shimon of being complicit in the theft. He's just saying, Shimon, you think you're in the field is really low. Okay, fine. Now watch this. Ruvain ma'arer al Sada Shabiyad Shimon. From a lady Shemach Lecha doesn't mean anything. Okay, so where's the case? Right? You've got Ruvain, Shimon, and Levi. Shimon is in current possession of a field that he bought from Levi. So Levi sold Shimon a field. Ruvain says, Shimon, that field you have, that's my field. That's my field. Levi stole it from me and sold it to you. Okay, here's the wrinkle. The Mishnah says, Chassamale means, that when Levi sold the field to Shimon, they drew up the documents. And one of the witnesses on the bill of sale is Ruvain. So Ruvain is a witness on the sale document from Levi to Shimon, and now Ruvain, who's one of the witnesses, says to Shimon, Father, the field is stolen. So let's say, so now obviously, exactly. Right, so Ruvain is claiming the Shimon the field we got from Levi is Levi stole it from me and sold it to you, and now we took the paperwork and we see that Ruvain himself is one of the witnesses on the bill of sale from Levi to Shimon. So what's that record? The Admon Omer, almost says it's not a problem. You say to Ruvain, so obviously you ask Ruvain, I don't understand. If the field, if Levi stole the field from me, then why would you agree to sign the shtar Mechira, right? Why would you agree to sell a bill of sale? Admon says there's a perfect answer to this. Shini no achli, Halusha Kashan the moment. So let's listen to this. Because Ruvain should say, listen, Levi is a gazda, right? Levi is a thief, right? Levi is a strong guy. I knew I never had any chance of getting my kid back from Levi. But Shimon, I know you. You're a reasonable guy. So I figured if I could get the fields away from Levi to you, Shimon, now I have a better chance of getting back my stolen field. That's why I agreed to sign on the bill of sale so I can get it out of Levi's hands into your hands. Incredible. It was another. So I'm just saying, like, oh, this is so great. This is incredible. So now listen to this. The Chum say, no, cut it out. Even if so, what are you talking about? Ruvain, again, Ruvain, if you come forward with a claim that the field that Shimon currently has is stolen from you, that's fine. But once you're signing once you're not a party, but once you're a witness for the transaction, you've lost any right to claim that this property belongs to you, even as if we sell. Just as the Rashi, actually, even as we sell, the whole of the Hassam, hold the shit in your essentially what the Hassam says is like this. The act of signing on a document, or that is witnessing a document of sale, sale transaction, is effectively saying what? This field has nothing to do with it. You're giving up any rights to the field. So they always say, come on this. On the flip side, I saw a similar affair. Sorry, on the flip side. I saw a similar affair. So I'll say, look at this case, look at Rashi. I saw a muhsab similar affair. שלא מוכר לראובן זה האור עליו, אלא לאיש אחר, היה מוכר סודה מצד זה, ומיצר לו ארבעת מצרי הסודה. וחסר בו במצרים, מיצר פלוני סודה שלי, ועשה סודה זו סודה. So let's say, now watch this case. So let's say for a moment that Reuben now owns the disputed field, right? Shimon, right? So Shimon owns the disputed field. So now, what does Shimon do? Shimon sells another piece of property, right? So let's say now, let's call the disputed field A, right? So same case, right? Reuben bought the field from, Shimon bought the field from Levi, right? Then there's Reuben. Reuben, of course, is claiming that Levi stole the field from him, and now sold it to Reuben. Sold it to Shimon. I'm sorry. One more time, I'm going to get this right. Right, so we'll say, so again, remember, Levi sells a field to Shimon. Right? In the back of all of this, we have Reuben claiming that Levi really sold that field to him. And now, all right, stole last time. Right? Levi sells the field to Shimon. Good, beautiful. Reuben now is claiming that the field that Shimon bought from Levi was stolen from him by Levi. Okay, so that was case one. And case one, it turns out that Reuben himself is an aid on the bill of sale from Levi to Shimon. Okay, so now what do we do with that? So again, according to so Chachamim say that's it. You've lost any claims. Signed on the shtar, you've lost any claim. Admon says no. There's still another claim. It's a claim. You make the claim. It's easier to make it completely fast from Shimon than it was from Levi. Fine. Case two is Reuben. Sorry, Shimon is selling a field. Shimon said, so let's call disputed field A. Shimon is selling field B. Field B. Fine, no problem. So let's say, often the way when you would sell a field, if there was a field that was next to other fields, the way you would identify the field that you were selling is by identifying the other fields all around it. Right? I'm selling field A, field B, that is bordered by fields A, G, E. Now, in this case over here, Shimon is selling field B. But in the document of sale, the reference is field B borders on my other field, field A. Field A. So in this case, field A is being used as a demarcation point, as a border. So right, field A, the dispute is not being sold at all, but it's being used to identify field B, which is the transaction. So now Reuben is using field A, right? Sorry, Shimon, thank you. Shimon is using field A as just to identify the border of the field that is being sold. Now, those are Reuben signing on this document also. Reuben signing on this document. So now, here's the shayla. Now, in this transaction, in this document, so when Shimon is selling field B, he's also, so to speak, solidifying his ownership over field A, because he's using field A to identify one of the borders of field B. Reuben was claiming that this field A was originally his, signing on his document. So now both say, so now what's going to happen after this is over? So now Ruben is going to want to come back and say to Shimon, by the way, field A is mine. It was stolen from me by Levi who subsequently sold it to you. The Mishnah says no. So Simon, La'achar, eBay that so. At the end of the day, even Admon agrees, which is interesting. Even Admon agrees in this case, that once Ruben signed on this type of star, which used the contested field as a border to the field being sold, everyone agrees that Reuben has relinquished any further rights to claim that the field is his. Okay, let's go. I'm Rabbi. Okay, let's go back to that first. Great. Let's go to the first case. Just say so. No, but the truth is, I realize that this we actually have to stay on target because the truth is, Kodesh is Tuesday, Wednesdays, right? So the truth is, Tuesday and Wednesdays Dabbing are a little bit, and Monday, a little bit long. So we gotta stay, and we only have 45 minutes on Tuesday and Wednesday. So we're gonna be fine. So let's say, so here we go. So let's say, so listen to this. All right, bye. So we'll say now we're focusing on case one. So once again, let's just get back to case number one, right? Shimon purchases a field from Levi. There's a document, right? On the document it says that Levi sold the field. Shimon, one of the witnesses is Reuven. Reuven then comes after the sale is complete. Then Reuven comes to Shimon and says, Shimon, the field is mine. Levi stole it from me. What? I got the document. So again, Chachamim say, sorry, Reuven, you no longer have any claim because Halacha Maisa, you signed on the document. Sorry, you're a witness. We're done. Alman says, no, Reuben has a claim. I guess I signed the document in order to get it out of Levi's hands. Your hands shouldn't, because I thought I had a better chance you are getting back my land. Fine. So now Bai says, Lo Shano Ella 8. That's only true. Like all of this is only true. Halacha myself, Reuben signed, and he's about focus, because only if Reuben signed as a witness. About Dayon Lo Reuben as a son. This is fascinating. So let's say it's really incredible. So if Halacha L'Maisa, Reuben served as a Dayan, judge, everyone agrees that he could still make the claim of theft, even though he was the judge over that. What is that? Why do you need a judge in this case? Look at Rashi about bias. Sheridish Garment, Reuben brings in the claim of Mishpat Kiyum Shtaros, Sha'idim Ba'im in the Yisrael Ksad Yadam, Ba'dayanim Kosim Shtara Binan Nafta L'Kabana, Let's say again they come to Beis Din to certify document. Kiyum Shtaros. We've spoken about certification of documents again. What is Kiyum Shtaros? The danger of documents. On one hand, in Halacha, document, right? We never sign shtar. So that's incredible. The problem is somebody go ahead and forge, right? Can you forge a shtar? Sure. So there's a concept of shtar certification. We call it kiyum shtaros. What's the process of kiyum shtaros? You bring your shtar to Beis Din, right? The Beis Din takes a look at it. The Beis Din brings in testimony or brings in the witnesses, certify that is their signature. You write a little pen click, right? You write a little piece on the document itself. But it's hand calculated and done, which shtar is certified. So the rest is incredible. So the advice is just like this. The Machlokes Talmud and the Chachamim in the first case of the Mishnah is only where Reuben signed as a witness on the transaction. If he was a diamond on the Beis Din that certified the document, that does not look at his ability to rule on claim that the field was stolen from him. Why are those saying? This is actually fascinating. We tell you that the field ain't ha'idin chosin ala shtar ela inkin karun. Aval on the base, Aval hadayanu chosin ha'ta pishelo karun. Those are absolutely incredible. When you witness a transaction, like when you sign as an age, what are you signing on? You're signing on the validity of the transaction. Like that's what you're signing on. That I witness this transaction. This transaction is binding, valid, and legal. When you're a dayan for kiyum shtaros, they're going to say, what are you certifying? Signatures. You are not certifying the transaction. fact, the Dayan, sometimes like Kiyum Shtaros, the Dayanim aren't even reading what's in the documents. Like, because I'm not certifying the transaction. I know you like the transaction. Kiyum Shtaros is there just simply to certify the signatures on the document itself. But it has nothing to do with it. It's so fascinating. So fascinating. So you could have a situation like Kiyum Shtaros, which makes sense, almost, because otherwise, Kiyum Shtaros requires a whole sort of the transaction. Then what's the point of the shtar? And what does the shtar do? The shtar, right? The edus on the shtar locks in the transaction. Kiyum Shtaros certifies the signature. So this is incredible. So let's say in a case where Reuben was a dying for Kiyum Shtaros, and I like to play this out, right? So Levi sells a field to Shimon, and then what happens? They drop a document, and now they want to bring the document to Beis Din for certification. Reuben is one of the Dayanim on the Beis Din to certify. Right? Reuben's Beis Din certifies the document, and then after it's certified, Reuben says to Shimon, by the way, the field is stolen from me. Everyone agrees in that case. Reuben has a valid claim. When we say Reuben has a valid claim, obviously saying something is stolen from you is not a claim. I mean, it's a claim, but it means is Reuben now has the right to what? Pursue that claim. Right? So again, why? And everyone agrees in that case. Everyone agrees in that case. Why? Because Reuben's acting as a diet for Kiyum Shtaros has nothing to do with the transaction. All Reuben was doing was just saying, oh yeah, the signatures we can say we can speak, you guys recognize the signatures, fantastic. We're done, sign it up, right? And then we're done. Certified, we're done. So everyone agrees in that case, it in no way erodes his claim to go ahead and pursue the stolen, right? The stolen claim. The claim that the land was stolen from him. Now Sha'in came when he's a witness to the actual transaction, sale from Levi to Shimon, and that is again part of signing on a shtar is what? You are claiming the transaction itself is valid. When you say claim the transaction is valid, you can't go ahead and now claim that same parcel was stolen from you. Admon says, yes, I can. The transaction was valid. In other words, yes, Levi sold to Shimon. But at the end of the day, it's not like good. It says the Gemara. I saw a similar act. I saw the next case the was. I remember again. Right? So same case, but let's say not same case. In this case, Shimon the purchaser, or Shimon the purchase confessed the property of parcel A. Shimon is selling parcel B and uses parcel A's to identify the borders of parcel B. Reuben himself signs on that shtar as well, or not as well, but Reuben sells on that shtar. The Mishnah says everyone agrees that after he sells on that shtar, he no longer has the right to pursue any terms of the land is stolen. Parcel A is stolen. I'm not buying. Lo shara ala la'achar. That's only true of the Rashi said, Lo shara la'achar. Dafka nafak masnis sinon la'achar. אבל עשה המוקצת בה סימן לעצמו שהרובן זה האורה על עצמו. Listen to this. That's only true when what? When Shimon is selling the parcel to someone else. What happens if Shimon is selling the parcel to Reuben himself? Shimon is selling parcel B to Reuben. And that happens to be in that sale, Shimon uses parcel A, that's the property, as a border identification. But ultimately, in that case, even though Reuben, right, even as Reuben did not go ahead and lose out on his ability to reclaim parcel A. Why? The Amar, Idla of Reuben, because he would say, if I would not agree to this, they'll have a master name. And ultimately, again, Shimon would not sell me the property. In other words, the thing over here is that if Shimon knows that Reuben is going to be claiming parcel A, he's going to be reticent to what? Selling parcel B. Reuben wants to buy parcel B. By logic, I can claim now, I'm not going to get parcel B. Certainly, again, leaving aside parcel A. So the Gemara says, might you check so what could Reuben have done? He violated the Mema Moga. So maybe what Reuben could have done is that before he purchases parcel B from Shimon, what side of this? So I'll tell you guys. I'm purchasing parcel B from Shimon. In the transaction, Shimon is in the parcel B, right? Borders on Shimon's other parcel A. I just want to tell you, Reuben's in the like a sidebar. I'll tell you guys, so you might also just go up in your saying anything now. He's not allowed to on this transaction. Maybe that's what we should say. Make him a god, not call. Like, let him go. And says, yeah, that'll work really well. Kavra is stay. The Kavra is stay. This is great line. Your friend has a friend, and the friend of your friend has a friend. Which I will say is another way of saying, don't rely on anyone's confidentiality. So the mice again, if Ruben says something so to people's confidence, for the witnesses, they're going to say something, and what's going to happen? It's going to cause the whole transaction partially before the capital. Which the mice says as follows. So the Papa is like, Ahuda saw similar after. The rest is now is in this case, so the case over here is, so let's go back. So let's say, so this is just a unique case over here. So remember, let's go back. The Mishnah said that in a case where Ruben is now signed on a shtar, that is a witness to a document, where Shimon is selling parcel B to another party, but in parcel B, he's using parcel A, that's the parcel, as one of the borders. And Ruben signs on that document, Ruben gives up his right to any more claim parcel A. That's only true. Now if I give the qualifications, that's true if Shimon was selling it to another party. But if Shimon was selling it to Ruben himself, so Ruben doesn't object to the use of parcel A as a border, that's because Ruben doesn't want to throw into jeopardy the whole transaction. Fine. Listen, I go back to the original case. Who does us in that? So let's go back to the Mishnah's original case. Right, so the Mishnah's original case. So I love that myself now. So Ruben is paid on the shtar where Shimon is selling parcel B using parcel A as a border. So what happens? Here the shopper. So after the transaction happens, now what happens? So Ruben claims, by the way, parcel A is mine. Parcel A is mine. So what happens? Shopper, then he died. Ruben died. Right, so Ruben died. This story is close, right? Ruben died after raising the objection to the ownership of parcel A. Okay. What happens? The oath is up to track. So now again, so after Ruben passed away, right, either Ruben made provisions for this beforehand, or the basis appointed an apotropos. Now there's an executor of Ruben's estate. Okay, so Asaf and Charlie coming to Abaye, the apotropos came before Abaye. Amalei saw similar. So what's this now? What happens? The apotropos is coming. Why is he coming? The apotropos is saying, listen. Before Ruben died, Ruben claimed that field A belonged to him. So the Apostrophe says, I am coming to follow up on that claim. I'm coming to follow up on that claim. Okay, so why is it listen? There's no claim. Listen, Krishna. I'm going to ask similar right? Even as so. We already learned this case. So in this case, Ruben signed onto this document where Shimon used field A as a border identification. And the Mishnah says, once you do that, you go ahead and you relinquish all of your rights. Nothing more to talk about. To which the Apotropos says, you're right. But Amar Ihava Avasan Yasnikayim Avachaim Amar Halam Akarasis. Very interesting. So let's say, so the Apotropos says, Ruben is still alive, but Ruben would say yes. I agree that I signed a document where Ruben used field A as a border for field B. It's really the only thing I was agreeing to was that perhaps Shimon owns a narrow strip of field A. A narrow strip of field A. That's what he owns. So he goes, anyway, Shabir Ta'amat. So it's true that's a good Taylor. Rabbi Yochanan in Hava Aman Kalan Akara Sisi Lacha Ne'aman. So it's actually very interesting. That the claim over here is that halacha l'maisa, right? That if I go ahead, the Yochanan says, let's say I say I sold you a field, right? The field is mine, and the only thing I sold you in that field was the narrow strip. Such a claim could actually be believed. So the Gemara is supposed to see what's happening over here. In other words, Ruben signed on this document that where Shimon was selling the field to another party, Shimon was selling field B. Field B was sold with a border identification. Ruben signed on it. After Ruben signed on it, the transaction happened. He said, by the way, field A is mine. It was stolen from me by Levi. After that, Ruben dies. Apotropos comes along and says, tries to sound up the affairs of the state, they come to Abayis, and the Apotropos, listen, you can claim this claim and feel this is. Abayis says, that's fine, feel this is. He says, that's fine, but it's a Mishnah. Right? Ruben is on that document. He's on that document. He's in field A as a brother to field B. He abdicated all rights to the field. To which the Apotropos says, no, 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 that's if he was here, we explain all Shimon really owned in that field was just a narrow strip. That's what he was identifying as the border. Which Abai says that's a good kind of. But Zil hardly leaving us, Kalam Echad, ultimately again, you still should have to go ahead. So in other words, now Abai says the Apotropos, even if that's a good claim, that's fine, but you still have to leave in Shimon's possession a narrow strip. So Havi Alei, this type of situation. So listen, here's the problem. On that narrow strip, there was a line of confidence. Made that narrow border strip pretty valuable. Pretty valuable. So it's what the Gemara says. So I'm gonna have a time but Amar Sazaki Balakaki this is great. Abshok says if Reuben was alive, he could claim while it's true that I sold that border strip back to Shimon, I then subsequently purchased it. Abai says, I want to shock the top. She's saying, good. Then Rabbi Yochanan, so let's say, ultimately, again, we're going to have to claim I sold it, but then I repurchased it if you believe. But let's say, the reason that is because this is, Rashi says, Pesha Asel, Wa Pesha Hitya. In other words, say, the king suburbs of Sal Viktor Rashi, Naaman, here's the case, just look at this in totality. Naaman, the Pesha Asel, Pesha Hitya, the Me'akashish, Edom, Shaisa, Shalom, Rabbi says, the king sold the field as well. Remember, Shimon sold the field, Levi sold the field to Shimon. And then again, it gets more complicated. So now what happens? So now you have Ruvain side. Now you have Shimon. Together. Here we go. You have Levi selling the field to Shimon. Field A. Okay, fine. Now what happens? Shimon sells field B to another party. But in that transaction, uses field A as a border identification. Ruvain signs on that shtar, that bill of sale that Shimon makes for the party of field B. Afterwards, what happens? Shimon, so Ruvain says, field A is mine. It's stolen from me by Levi and sold to Shimon. So remember again, speaking halakha in the Mishnah, we don't believe you. We don't believe you. So we'll say, in this case, it's becoming a little more complex. In this case, what happens is, Ruvain goes ahead and claims the field is stolen. Not only that, Ruvain brings witnesses. He brings Avis. That's only the blame for the He brings witnesses. Now we'll say, after he brings witnesses, what happens? He dies. Okay, now what happens? Apotropos comes to Abai. Apotropos says, listen, I'm here to help him with his case. Abai says, there is no case. It's a Mishnah. Ruvain signed on the document. Apotropos says, but he has Avis. Abai says, hold on a second. Essentially, the Avis is negated in the face of what? Ruvain's signature. In other words, once Ruvain signs on that document, he effectively signs away his rights. Here's the Apotropos says, no. What you understand is, he actually went ahead and sold back, sold to Shimon a strip of land. Okay. So now what you're telling me is, when Ruvain signed the document, he wasn't giving his rights to the rest of the field. What was he acknowledging? That Shimon owns a strip of land of field A that borders on field B. But that in no way he's giving his rights to the rest of field A. That's good. But Abai says, okay, that's fine, so you can pursue your claim on the rest of field A. But what? But you have to go ahead and at least leave in Shimon's possession what? The strip of land. In which Apotropos says, but 1 second. He's going to the story. Ruvain brought back the strip of land from Shimon. He brought it back. In which Abai says, which is saying, yes, why? Because I will say, this is a passion, as I mentioned, why? The only way to do it back to sale is how? was through Ruben, right? In other words, right through Ruben. We didn't know about the sale. Without the sale, all you would have is what? Abe was saying that the field was stolen from Ruben. So now Ruben, so to speak, was apotropos, telling us that a sale happened of this Swiss. Now Ruben's further qualifying and telling us after the sale occurred, Ruben bought it back from Shimon. It's a Pesha, also Pesha in which case Ruben slash the apotropos should be believed. It turns away that Ruben, it turns out that Ruben should really have to be able to walk with. As soon as we could prove this claim, that he should really be able to walk with the field in its entirety, including the strip of palm trees. Incredible. Amar Abai, so what's the figures in the story? Abai, I want to mocha apotropa, no ki ad yadala apotropa. Suppose that the entire takeaway is you got to get an apotropa like this, right? There, so this is you gotta surround yourself with good people. Like this apotropa Abai says knew exactly what he was doing. Good. So let's say so for our purposes, I also my son. How do we possibly? So said this is a complicated case. That is a very complicated case. Remember again, said that what we have essentially embedded in this case is a couple of different cases. Just because I'm just going to tell you quickly. Rama Paskins, this is an Hilchos Tolim Zenitzan, Perek Tes Zayin, Halachas Aleph days. We're not going to have time for everything. I'm going to read out the Talon case. It's going to give you the Mishnah. Here it is. Ruben Shemaka the Shimon Saga. Ruben sent the fruits. Ruben sold the field to Shimon. The higher they dashed out this. Now, I'm seeing this name. I'm going to keep it like we have it, right? So let's say, so Levi sold the field to Shimon, and Reuben was one of the witnesses on the shtai. And what happens? Subsequently, right? Reuben claims, actual transaction occurs. Reuben claims that what? That Allah Kalamaisa, Levi stole it from me, came Shimon. But I'm not passing like this. No. I remember again, you're going to claim, yes, I signed on it because I wanted it to go from Levi to Shimon because I feel a better chance to get back from Shimon and from Levi. But Rambam says, case closed. Case closed. Halacha l'maisa. Right, halacha l'maisa. There's absolutely nothing to talk about once you are party to the transaction. Right, once you are a witness on that shtar, you have effectively ceded and yielded any right that you have to bring up to your guys. However, the Rambam says, when Reuben acted as a direct shtaris, he does not yield or cede any future rights. Again, we're back to the distinction of the Allah an aid certifies the transaction. A barrier only certifies signature. So it was like, Allah we don't constantly like unlearning this mission concept that covered. There's more, much more. Again, Hilchos Tolim Nikan, Harap Kazai, Halachas Alid, and days. Take a look at it. We're all about the interesting at least, but that's not Allah Good. Mishnah, quickly. Mishnah, Allah the Derech Sadeh. Yeah, it just gets better. Listen to this case. And we'll say, by the way, you ask yourself, what does this have to do with Ksubas? So good. Right, that's answer number one. That's answer number one. So remember again, the reason, just so you know, in all seriousness, the reason why we're doing this is because remember, the way this kind of started off were with the rulings of Admon and Hanan. And remember again, it started off with a discussion about Mizonos. That's what Ksubas. Now, let's say we're just going through all of their rulings. Watch this great case. Misha, Allah Kumudina says, we'll say, watch this case. Ruling goes overseas. Now, Ruben owns a field. Now, most interesting enough, the case over here is Ruben's field is landlocked, which means that the only way he was ever able to get into his surface house, he had a right of way. He had a right of way with someone. So what happened? The Mishnah so also now what's the problem? Someone's like, he's been away for a while. He can't remember the right of way. Where is my right of way to get into my field? And of course, as you can imagine, none of the neighbors have been informed. Right? No, because obviously no one wants to give up that. No one wants to give up that, right? So Admon over, Yelef knows Tzara. Admon says, look, since we have to use logic, figure out what is the shortest way to get into this field, and let's assume that was the previously established right of way. The Chum same way. You have a choice. Either go ahead and take top dollar, whoever's going to negotiate with you, or fly. Right? In other words, right? Okay, right? Of life. Figure out a way to fly. Right? So again, this is actually interesting. It comes to say, listen, Ruben, you went overseas, you lost your information. The burden is on you. So pretty much, again, no one has to do anything for you. So you're going to have to figure out a way to negotiate the top dollar right of us. What's that right? So my time is Rabbanon. Shabbat Rabbanon. I understand. What's the logic of the Rabbanon? It's able to say, the reason why the Rabbanon's position doesn't seem to make sense is if there's one thing it's that what? It's that what? Ruben had a right of way. Had a right of way. Right? So let's say, I'll say it's the right of way. Even today, and the right of way agreements are like you would think should be the simplest part of a real estate transaction. It's incredible how complicated right of way agreements are. It's fascinating. In any event, somebody says, as far as I understand, obviously he has a right of way. This was his field. He used the field. He was getting in and out of the field, so there was a right of way agreement. So I'm going to say, listen, logically, he's going to take the easiest path. So just assume that's the path he had. What's logical of that? All right, Raz, watch this. Don't shoot people. I gave it away a little bit. I'm sorry. Shoot people are up in other than other myself. I gave it away. Whereas this is a landlocked field. There's 4 different people. So we'll say, what's the problem? What's the problem? The problem is you can imagine a really stacked evidence of and then he goes to number 1. Was Brian by the way from here? No, not here. Like number 2, don't now. You need either 3, 4. So we'll say, each has the ability to deflect it to the other. So this is one of these interesting cases where we know right away exists, but who they can't figure out to reach it. They're saying against any one particular party. He might time in the Admon. If that's the case, then again, why does Admon say that Ruben can seemingly seize the shortest right of way? And another, very quickly, Ba'arbad the Asimikwa Arbad. So, Ba'arbad the Asimikwa had for the Amalek League of Matzimati. So, let's listen to this. When you have 4 people who bought their own respective goods from 4 other people, or for that matter, 4 people who bought their fields from 1 person. Everyone agrees in that case, each party could deflect to someone else. Keeply, so the Gemara says, so keeply, where does not like this now? Let's listen to this. The Chad, the Asim, Arba. So watch this. I will say, let's say now all 4 fields, all 4 of the landlocked fields, or the landlocked fields, are all owned by 1 person. Right? So you've got Reuben in the middle, and all 4 of the surrounding fields are owned by 1 person. That will say what? Bought it from 4 individual owners. So in this case over here, we'll call him Shimon. Shimon now owns the 4 fields which surround Reuben's field. Shimon bought it from 4 independent people. Watch this. So Admon saw that so Admon said, listen, Reuben can go to Shimon. You know right away. You know that I own it right away. You can figure out what you own. I own it, so give it to me. There's this Rabbanon should listen to this. Shimon can say Shimon like this. He shut up, don't shut up. If you decide to play, be right, you make problems to me. My huge Omala, you're going to not see this reason. So listen to this. Shimon can say to Reuben, here's the deal. If you want to negotiate, you negotiate. We're going to make problems. I'm going to return the land to the previous 4 owners. It's going to be owned by 4 independent people. And therefore, what they're saying, Reuben will never be able to get right away. Why? Because each of them get the practice to the other. So if you want to negotiate, you can negotiate. But if you're going to claim materially, right, something's owed to me, I'll simply go ahead and return the land and then you'll be stuck forever. Incredible. So the Gemara says, I'm sorry. Who Damalu, I was saying quickly, finish up the sugya. Who Damalu, how a guy says, Who Damalu, love this us. Just listen to this. A guy, Ruben, is about to die. Right before he dies, he says, I want my daughter to inherit the promise. He's giving a palm tree to his daughter. Also, Yas, which probably when if I say, there's a Ruben dies, and the sons went ahead and divided up the estate, but he didn't give the palm tree to his daughter. Right? Also, Yas is plugging in the cousin, so Yavin and Shikha. But Yosef Neymar, and you must listen that Yosef wanted to say that I said that this is the name of the Mishnah. Why, what about the girl I want to go ahead and come to the country? Right? And each son could say what? Each one could say what? No, not from my portion, from his portion, from his portion, from his portion. I'm going to buy you, I'm trying to give comparisons. Also, from Hag Mathematicals. How can people that buy you, Father? So listen to this. Here's the difference. So listen, in the case of the right of way really only does exist on one field. When it comes to the daughter's right to a country, that is a right that involves sometimes all of their inheritance portions. So therefore, my Takanai, what should we do? Lace with a dikla, what we should do is give her a palm tree, and then we divide the estate minus the palm tree. That's what should happen. Okay, we'll say very quickly. I'm sorry, just give me a little one more minute and we'll stop. Who's the Amalu? Dikla Lebras. Actually, I will say, we'll stop over here for today. We'll just pick up with this very last piece of information. I tried. Okay, let's say Shkoyach again. Great week ahead of us. And then Hashem, Shkoyach. All right, everyone, have a great day, everyone. All right, I will say good morning, let us begin. Hashem, a great is to enter into our last week of the sessions to Shivas. I want to go ahead and begin by thanking all of our sponsors for this week. We should thank our commentary sponsors for the month of Tishri, to thank Dr. Linda Weinberg, Sarah Ricky Grant, Studio, Nina, and me. Loving them, dedicating short this month, loving memory of their husband, father, and leaders, Dr. Paul Weinberg, parents, Moshe, Ben, Abraham, and Rabbi. Thank Ayala for Steinberg, dedicating the Shiur this month in the space of the Hur Shalita, for Shulamis Spas Susha, and Ivy Ben Zed, who's focused on all of our viewers for this topic. Avram Zeisman, the nation of the Argentine grandmother, of his grandfather, Abraham Ben Aro, Tzvi and Shir, in honor of Yehuda and Elliot, Shmuel and Shia Pepper, in honor of Arizona and all the best traditions. Incredible, beautiful. Also, to thank our documentary sponsors for today. Aaron and Ashley Stars, in honor of the Bas Mitzvah of their granddaughters, for the Rosh Road, the Torah episodes, our family, all of that. Beautiful, beautiful. Also, with that, let us begin very, very excited. It was a very exciting tomorrow in general, and also to recognize very beautiful things like this events. Our people are finishing the Sefta, Andash Kodesh, so we're ending things, beginning things, closing out Kodesh Tishrei, finish fresh months, fresh month, and also some of the excitement. Sefta was in that today's draft is quick fast. 109. We have to come up with Lord Hashem on the bottom of the Testament days. 108b. 108b. We really left off. We left off yesterday after the Mishnah. The Mishnah says as follows. A person does the Testament. It's a very interesting case. Someone promises money to someone. An age-old story, right? So someone promises money to his son-in-law. Now, in this particular case, what's unfolding over here is like this. Essentially, talking about a guy. So that Picture for a moment that Reuben is marrying Rachel. Rachel's father promises Reuben some amount of money. And what happens? Yitzchak lost Haragah. And then the father-in-law, extends his foot. So what does it mean extends his foot? So again, extends his foot means father-in-law doesn't pay. Father doesn't pay. So Rachel's father doesn't pay the dowry. Now look at that. Yitzchak lost Haragah. Lashon Zion Amar no age she'enu chashlik dvarav tol tit sha'al gabi rabbi. So what's this Talmudic expression of extending your foot means essentially I'm giving you nothing, take the dirt that's on my shoe. But that was like, now in general, what this sounds like is the father-in-law is intentionally not giving the son-in-law the money. But the truth is, the piece doesn't have to be set up that way. That's just the way that's the Mishnah is saying it. So Portugal is rather here, take the dirt that's on my foot, I'm not giving you any money. Don't go be serious. Father-in-law promised money and now is not delivering. So let's say now the problem we're in is that Kedushin has already taken place. Kedushin has already taken place. So Reuben was already Mekadosh Rachel. Kedushin has not yet been done. Father-in-law indicates that whatever the situation is, you will not pay the money. Once that Rachel happened to the test, they should actually have been Roshan. But Chachamim say, ultimately again, literally she has to sit there until her hair goes gray, which means she's stuck. Rachel's stuck. That, in other words, at this point in time, you can show these in Reuben's hands, and either he can make a choice to marry her, right? Or ultimately just wait and do nothing until her father pays her. After all, again, there was an agreement. There was an agreement that was made. Rachel's father is not honoring the agreement. So again, Reuben the Lord to a holding pattern until his father-in-law pays the agreement. Admon says, before the Isha Tomar, Rachel could say to Reuben, you are Nipasaki Latsmi, you should actually have no sheep. So Admon says like this, Rachel could say to Reuben, listen, I, Rachel, was going to promise you money. I was going to promise you money. Then you can hold me over my head. But even hold me over my head, then you can essentially, hold me in this marriage until either I pay you or until I pay you. But again, Akshat, Abba Passak, Mani Yipol Lasos, Osinos, Osikos. So she says, what do you want from me? My father promised me this. So you're going to hold me accountable, you're going to punish me for my father's actions. So you can marry me, right? Soon. Or divorce me. So God says, I'm not the Himel, no, I need to die. And the Himel says, I think I have this cross. The Bible says, fundamental focus. Once again, just to be the case. So Rachel's going to get married to Reuben. Rachel's father promises Reuben $10,000. Right? That's the agreement. That's the dowry. Reuben does Kiddush. Now, father-in-law says, I'm not giving you. I'm not giving you. I can't give you. I won't give you. Whatever it is. The point is that he's not giving. So now, coming saying, Reuben has every right to essentially hold Rachel in this marriage until her father decides to pay. Her father decides to pay, and ultimately he doesn't pay. So then Rachel's going to grow old in his sleep. But Kedushin, Admon says that's not right. It's not right. Like ultimately, like I said, even if the Hanan is saying it's right, the Hanan is saying it's legal. Whereas this is technically a legal recourse that he has to force his father-in-law's hand. So Rachel says so Admon says that Rachel says that that's not right. I didn't enter into the community. My father's ways. Why are you punishing me for the default of my father? Listen, don't keep me in limbo. Either marry me or divorce me. And Zakai, I think that was Paula's Let's go. So let's see some divorce guy Paula. Mishnah does not reflect the view of the following child. As a witch child, we don't know about the passage is the Sanja, I'm Rabbi Rothschild, Lo Yachliku Adon Ala Chesed Be'ez Nefashim. Pashut Lo Asaraga, שיכול לי שתאמר אבא עסק עליי, מה אני יכול לעשות? It was very interesting. A different twist of it. In this place, I'm quoting the same piece. But in this case, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda posits that every one of these, in a case where the father defaulted on the agreement he made, that Reuben can't hold Rachel hostage in this way. So no one is focus Chachamim and Achel. Ashachoske Ki Alatzmo. I will say in the Bryce's version, when the father defaulted, everyone agrees that Reuben can't hold Rachel and says, this is everyone is going to agree that on a conceptual level, a man should never hurt his wife in a marriage. Right? That's never something that Chazal wants. Why has been historically created the system of in a way that seems to give the husband much more power, sometimes even power? I don't know. That's a question that we don't ask. I have to ask the question about that. Money. Every another will come. It only thinks us why the halachas seem to really heavily slanted to keep the man the power. But again, this is a legal discussion. So legal discussions sometimes do not enter into the arena of what is right. Right? We all know this. That we teach this to our kids. Just because something is mutter, right? Just because it's permissible does not mean it should be done. So again, we're talking about what's permissible, right? So Chachamim say again, it's permissible for him to use the marriage as leverage to go ahead and extract money from his father. It's legal. It's legal. Is it right? Is it right? Of course it's not right. Of course it's not right. So it's just important to understand that. Which I know everyone does, but sometimes it's just important. Like guys who get older, especially, you know that even when everyone knows something, it's still important to say. And I will say, by the way, this extends, all women. Person has to dissolve a marriage, again, should never ever be used as leverage. Again, should never be used as a mechanism or a tool to extract something that a husband, right? It's not what Chazal, it's not what Baruch wants, it's not what Chazal wants. And the truth is, nothing good ever comes from hurting another human being, and nothing good ever comes by using halacha as a means of extortion. Okay, but back to our idea. So again, the Brisa has a different view on this, right? So in the Brisa's version, Rabbi Chachamim and Admon both agree that what? That Allah Maisa, where it was the father who made the financial arrangement with Reuben, and that the father defaults, or I don't know some other words, again, default doesn't pay whatever it is. So everyone agrees from the Rabbi Yehuda that Allah Maisa, Rachel says to Reuben, even marrying your investment, but you cannot keep him in this limbo state. So what's the machlokes? What's the machlokes? Al shepaskihi alatzma. What happens if Rachel promised Reuben money? Right. So before they do kiddushin, Rachel says to Reuben, "Listen, you mekadosh me, and if you're mekadosh me, I'm going to give you $10,000." Okay. So now what happens? Reuben's mekadosh Rachel, and then what happens? Rachel doesn't pay. Won't pay, can't pay, doesn't pay. So let's say, so now watch this. Shacham become say Tishin Achatav Nosha. The Chachamim say, listen, Rachel, you made a promise. I need to commit it. Reuben is not familiar to do sitting with you until you figure this out. So you can go into a holding pattern over here until you, Rachel, figure out how to satisfy the obligation you entered into. Admon says, listen to this, Admon says, so what could she say in this case? This is great. She says, no. When I said I'm going to give you $10,000, I figured the same bank that has been bankrolling my life up until this point in time. Right? It's incredible. No credit limits, right? No pre-qualifications, nothing. I figured the same bank that was taking care of me my entire life is going to take care of me now. So she said, I know I said that I was going to pay you. But again, I automatically assumed that it was my father who was going to go ahead and pay for this Naduga. So she says, what do you want from me? I guess, in other words, what Rachel says, I'm not purposely being difficult over here. I never had the money to back up this promise, right? I never had the money to back up the promise. It was always going to be my father. Now my father doesn't want to pay. Okay, don't hold me hostage in this relationship. Either marry me or divorce me. So I will say, so I just want to point out over here, so the verse now explaining that there's two versions of this machlokes. in our Mishnah's version, right? The Machlokes case is where the father of the bride, the father of Rachel, promised and then doesn't pay. Chachamim say, okay, Reuben can wait, Reuben can do nothing, Reuben can go into a holding pattern until the Shver pays up. Right? Admon says she can say to him, this is not my fault, either divorce me or marry me, but don't go and keep me in this holding state. Right? Raisa now says, no, in that case where the father defaults, everyone agrees that Rachel could tell Reuben, either divorce me or marry me, deciding to do what's the Machlokes case? The Rachel promises the money. So the Chachamim say, listen, Rachel, you made a promise. Make good on the promise. If you don't make good on the promise, Reuben has no obligation towards you. You go into a holding pattern. Admon says, no. When Rachel says, I made the promise, it was my father. I was relying on my father. So ultimately, don't hold it against me. Either marry me or divorce me. Incredible. I'm going to Rabbi says, and therefore we'll say in the Brisa also, again in the Brisa, you have Rabbi Gamliel agreeing with Admon. So Tana, so let's analyze this. When is this so? When is this so? Says the Gemara. Perfect. I'll say, when is all of this said? Right? Exclusively the Brisa. That we talking about the 12th floor. But with a Gekano, with a minor, we will force him. We will force him. So the Gemara says, force who? Force who to do what? If ultimately at the end of the day we come out forcing the father to pay off, so we'll say it makes much more sense to force the father in a case of a Gedola than it does to force him in a case of a Gekana. Why? Because we'll say we're talking about a case where the Gekana promised money. Right? Rachel is promised money to Reuben. What's the halachic rate of that promise? Not there. Like it wasn't kind of meaningless. So if you're going to be talking about a case where you're forcing the father to pay out, it makes more sense to force the father to pay up in a case where the stolen daughter made a commitment. So the Gemara says, you know what? Sorry about it. And the Rabbah hoping the Baal releasing the gap. Now the Rabbah says, no. What it means is he forced the husband to give a gap. So it's like, I love the case of a Kitana. And it's written for the Kitana. Ultimately, again, not finding. Therefore, Allah Shalom is a piece of the Kitana will force the husband to give a gap. We'll see how that plays out in the Rambam in just a little bit. I don't read the Gemara as we do this yet. Come back and so let's finish this argument and go back to the Rambam. So this is this. So Amar Rav Yitzchak ben Elazar Mishul B'Chizkiah. Come back and say Rav Gamliel Lo Ani Yistivra Adon. So we'll say now we're going back to the Mishnah. Any time that you find that Rabbi Gamliel says, right? Any place where you find Rabbi Gamliel said Allah follows Adon, Allah follows. Allah follows. Only Rabbi Rav that should even in the Brisa just in the Mishnah. In other words, now we're saying whenever Rabbi Gamliel says the halacha follows Admon, the halacha follows Admon. So is that true just in the Mishnah and the Brisa as well? Did I say just in the Mishnah? Listen to what I'm saying. I said any place means what? A Mishnah or a Brisa. Any time Rabbi Gamliel says the halacha follows Admon, the halacha follows Admon. Incredible. Based on right? Ultimately, and so this now, let's say something about the in the two situations, ultimately again, where based on Shamar Hanan Kiyotzebo, right? Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said that halacha follows Hanan. Halacha follows Hanan. Shiva Dom Shamar Admon in halacha Kiyotzebo. But ultimately, again, the 7 cases where Admon said the halacha, and Rabbi Gamliel said that the halacha is like Admon, the halacha does not follow Admon. So that's what does this mean? Even though Shnei Dvarim Shamar Hanan halacha Kiyotzebo, so it means like this: the two halachas that Hanan brought down, and ultimately again, Yotzebo, those who classify like Hanan, the halacha follows them. Shivudam Shama Admon in halacha Kimoso, the Yotzebo, the 7 cases that are brought up in the name of Admon, the halacha neither follows Admon, nor like the ones who classify like Admon. I have Yitzchak ben Elazar Mishul B'Chizkiah. So we just said before, that any time that the Gamliel said, I see the words of Admon to be correct, that the halacha follows Rabbi Gamliel, Admon, those who pass away. Allah needs to say. There are two situations where Hanan said, Allah follows him, and those who trust in Allah. First one, Allah said, Shiva Gar Shama Adnan, Ain Halacha Kiyotziba. Or said that the 7 cases where Adnan brought down this halacha, halacha does not follow him. So the Gemara says, I'm sorry, Ain Halacha Kiyotziba, the halacha doesn't follow those who quote him. Hakimoso, halacha B'kulim. It sounds like when it's just Adnan by himself, that the halacha would follow him.
Oh, everybody, stop what you're doing. Stop what you're doing. You're never going to believe what's here, folks. Stop what you're doing. I know you may be in the middle of surgery. I know that you may be in the middle of childbirth. I know that you may be in the middle of taking your child to baseball practice. But everybody stop what they're doing because Riser has bestowed his extremely valuable time upon our Discord. How you living, big dog?
I appreciate the intro.
Big dog. Big dog. It's your world. We just live in it.
Exactly. We're all spectators of my life.
All right. So what's on the absolutely. What's on the agenda? Absolutely.
I can't take any blame for this, like the pet sanitary one, but Mama Riser has chosen or recommended a movie documentary.
Amazing. I really love it. I really love it.
A legendary film, a movie documentary about during 9/11, all these planes had to land immediately, and so like 9,000 people land during this town of Gander, New York. She apparently says it's really good.
I would call this.
But it involves Goofy.
I would call this event.
Yeah. Have you seen the
No,
documentary?
I saved all of the Newfie documentaries for you.
There's really not enough Newfie documentaries.
100%. Isn't it interesting that you thought it was a peninsula?
I did not ever say it.
That's incorrect. You didn't know anything about it, my man. And we together have changed the meaning of the word Newfie to mean a brilliant individual.
Talent, extremely intelligent, high IQ.
Don't you know? All right, I'm ready when you are, big man.
That's it.
All right, coming right up. First ever nude. Yes.
Furthermore, 2 cases of default. What are the 2 cases of default? Case A, father default. Case B, brother, daughter, wife default. Was a machlokes Amon Chachamim. Then there's a further machlokes Mishnah and the Brisa as to when the machlokes.
Riser, can you hear me?
Rama Baskins. Both Ishos.
Riser.
Why that was placed in the Rambam and not the Shulchan Aruch.
Riser.
So this was the only place in the Rambam and the Shulchan Aruch has been the same way. In general, the derech of the Rambam is that the Rambam's formulation of halacha is often much truer.
I have to stream it from my computer when I'm joining on my computer.
You're good. You're good. Did you know my podcast was published today?
I didn't. You need to send me a link.
I have a question for you. Did you know, just before we get into this, do you know what the number one, all time, this is shocking to me, all time, what the number one Joe Rogan episode is, his highest ranked episode ever is?
Like by views or
How else does he do it?
I mean, you could look at the amount of likes or
Excellent point. No. When he said on a recent episode, he said to this guest. Of all of the YouTube videos that I have, you're my number one interview of all time. And he repeated it later. This is Joe Rogan's number one guest of all time. Who do you think it is? Wow. My man Riser, that's from the heart, baby. That's right.
I guess that's
Good. Good job, Riser. And so Bob Lazar was on again to promote his new documentary. And so once we not anytime soon, but one of these days, after all the family things are mom has gone back to momland, we'll watch those because they're fascinating. Okay.
Sounds good. Crazy day.
What happened?
This is where she's
Yes, sir. Oh wait, yeah, you did. You got approval through the city and everything.
I didn't promise.
I then district asked me to get permission from the building owner and the restaurant. And then I got permission from the building owner and the sketch. And then there's I also had to inform the Business Improvement Association. And it turns out that the Business Improvement Association to step on my toes and basically are like hijacking the wall that I have already got permission to paint, and they want me to apply through the smallest mural program, and they run a festival every year. And so I had to submit an application online, basically, and may or may not be chosen. Hopefully potentially the property owner or building owner.
Tell them I vouch for you. You can paint any wall of mine.
I appreciate it. Also, apparently this new feed 9/11 thing was a musical as well. Come from away
I've not heard of the musical. I've heard of the documentary, and I remember the event. Specifically, all of these planes being on screen.
Rashi says, watch this.
It's hilarious. It's really good.
Alright.
Also,
And what's the name of the musical? Come from away. We'll have to check that out.
Listen,
that come from away is actually, I think it's an expression that you can use for anyone who
Absolutely. I could tell by the high intelligence of that phrase that, wow, this is a Newfie phrase if I've ever heard it. Absolutely. So before we start, Mama Riser, so Riser has said that he had never, to his knowledge, ever met anyone in Newfoundland. Have you ever met real life Newfoundland?
Oh yeah, I've been to Newfoundland four times. My boss right now is actually works from Newfoundland. So I met a lot of them. Awesome.
Are they very kind?
So kind.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. They seem extremely kind.
I played hockey with the guy I don't want to dox him. His name was Sean, and then his dad was also from Newfoundland. He used to drive me to hockey, and he has a textbook like nice person on there.
This documentary will demonstrate just how nice these people
I'm ready for it.
And they're
Yeah, they're probably like giving all of their things. Yeah, sure. Come on, stay by the house.
I think this
I loved her too. I was walking
No
I was walking through the streets downtown St. John's, and it was probably around 5 o'clock, and this woman came out of the bar, and she was so drunk. She was so drunk, and she just looked at me and kept calling me a whore. But it was just funny, and I liked her anyway. I've never been called out in my life. I think she couldn't see me straight or something. I don't know. It was pretty funny.
Shimon, now I have a better chance of getting back my stuff.
Let her rip.
That's why I agreed to sign on the bill of sale so I can get it out of Levi's hands into your hands. Incredible. Incredible. But also, brother, it's reality TV. So I'm just saying, like, this is so great. This is incredible. So now listen to this. The Chum say, no, come on, cut it out. Even as if so. Now, what are you talking about? Ruvain, if you come forward with a claim that the field that Shimon currently has is stolen from you, that's fine. But for myself, once you're signing on to once you're not a party, but once you're a witness to the transaction, you've lost any right to claim that this property belongs to you. Even as if so. So it's a thing of Rashi. Actually, even as so, the whole of the chasam, hold the she'in lo isek. Essentially, what that chasam says is like this: the act of signing on a document, or the act of witnessing a document of sale, sale transaction, is effectively saying what this field has nothing to do with. You're giving up any rights to the field. So they will say fundamental machlokes. On the flip side, I saw similar akar. Sorry, on the flip side, I saw similar akar. So I'll say, look at this case. Look at Rashi. עשה המוחזק בסמל האחר שלא מוכר לראובן זה האור עליו אלא לאיש אחר היה מוכר סודה מצד זה ומיצר לו 4 מצרי הסודה וחשף לו במצרים מיצר פלוני סודה שלי ועשה סודה זו סמל. So we'll say, now watch this case. So let's say for a moment that Reuven now owns the disputed field, right? I'm sorry, Shimon, right? So Shimon owns the disputed field. So now, what does Shimon do? Shimon sells another piece of property, right? So let's say now, let's call the disputed field field A, right? So same case, right? Reuven bought the field Shimon bought the field from Levi. Right, then there's Reuven. Reuven, of course, is claiming that Levi stole the fields from him and now sold it to Reuven. Sold it to Shimon. I'm sorry. One more time, I'm going to get this right this time. Right, so we'll say, so again, remember, Levi sells a field to Shimon. Right, in the back of all of this, we have Reuven claiming that Levi really sold that field to him. And now, right, stole last night. Right? Levi sells a field to Shimon. Good, beautiful. Reuven now is claiming that the field that Shimon bought from Levi was stolen from him by Levi. Okay, so that was case one. And case one is where it turns out that Reuven himself is an aid on the bill of sale from Levi to Shimon. Okay, so now what do we do with that? So again, according to Admon, so Chachamim say that's it. Reuven, you've lost any claim. You signed on the shtar. You've lost any claim. Admon says no. There's still another claim. You can claim. Reuven can claim. It's easier for me to get the field back from Shimon than it was from Levi. Fine. Case two is Shimon is selling the field. So let's call disputed field is field A. Shimon is selling field B. Field B. It's fine, no problem. So it's like often the way when you would sell a field, if it was a field that was next to other fields, the way you would identify the field that you were selling is by identifying the other fields all around it, right? I'm selling you field A, field B, that is bordered by fields A, D, E. So in this case over here, Shimon is selling field B. But in the document of sale, makes reference, it says field B borders on my other field A. Field A. So in this case, field demarcation point, as a border. So, right, field A, the dispute is not being sold at all, but it's being used to identify field B, which is the transaction. So now Ruvain is using field A, right? Sorry, Shimon, thank you. Shimon is using field A as just to identify the border of the field that is being sold. Now, I will say, Ruvain is signing on this document also. Ruvain is signing on this document. So now, here's the Shaila. Now, in this transaction, in this document, so when Shimon is selling field B, selling field B, he's also what? So to speak, solidifying his ownership over field A, because he's using field A to identify one of the borders of field B. Ruvain, who's claiming that this field A was originally his, is signing on this document. So now both say, so now what's going to happen after this is over? So now Ruben is going to want to come back and say to Shimon, by the way, field A is mine. It was stolen from me by Levi, who subsequently sold it to you. The Mishnah says no. Asa Simon la'acher ibn esif. At the end of the day, even Admon agrees, which is interesting. Even Admon agrees in this case, that once Ruben signed on this type of shtar, which used the contested field as a border for the field being sold, everyone agrees that Reuben has relinquished any further rights to claim that the field is his. Okay, interesting. Let's go. Rabbi. Okay, let's go back to that first case. Great. Let's go back to the first case. That's what I'm good. Okay, we're carry over. It's good. Let's say so. No, because the truth is, I realize that this we actually have to stay on target because the truth is, Shkodesh is Tuesday, Wednesday, right? So the truth is, Tuesday and Wednesday's docking are a little bit, and Monday, a little bit long. So we gotta stay, and we only have 45 minutes on Tuesday and Wednesday. So, but we're gonna be fine. So let's say, so here we go. We'll say, so listen to this. All right, bye. So we'll say, now we're focusing on case number one. So once again, let's just get back to case number one, right? Shimon purchases a field from Levi. There's a document, right? On the document, it says that Levi sold the field. Shimon, one of the witnesses is Reuven. Reuven then comes after the sale is complete. Then Reuven comes to Shimon and says, Shimon, the field is mine. Levi stole it from me. What? Signed on the document. So again, Chachamim say, sorry, Reuven, you no longer have any claim because halacha ma'isa, you signed on the document. You were a witness. We're done. Almon says no. Reuven has a claim. Yes, I signed the document in order to get it out of Levi's hands to your hands, Shimon, because I felt I'd have better chance with you of getting back my land. Fine. So now Bai says, Lo shano ela aid. That's only true, right? All of this is only true. If halacha la'maisa, Reuven signed, or is the machlokas, it's only if Reuven signed as a witness. About Dayon lo ibed es. This is fascinating. So let's say if it's really incredible. So if halacha l'maisa, Reuven served as a dayan, as a judge, everyone agrees that he can still make the claim of theft, even though he was the judge over the matter. What is that mean? Why do you need a judge in this case? Look at your action about dayan. Shehu b'shtar mechir v'cheis in the kaimo v'mishpat kiyum shtaris she'idim ba'im u'mikra k'sav yadam v'adayan and tosin shtara dinan nafka l'kabana. So I say, watch this. Let's say again they come to Beis Din to certify a document. Kiyum shtaris. We've spoken about certification of documents. What is kiyum shtaris? See, the danger of documents. On one hand, in halacha, document, right? When you have a signed shtar, so that's incredible. The problem is somebody go ahead and forge, right? Can you forge a shtar? Sure. So there's a concept of shtar certification. We call it kiyum shtaris. What's the concept of kiyum shtaris? You bring your shtar to Beis Din, right? The Beis Din takes a look at it. The Beis Din brings in testimony or brings in the witnesses to certify that is that is their signature. We write a little pen pick, right? We write a little either on the document itself or an attached document and done. The shtar is certified. So there was this incredible. So Abaye suggests like this: the machlokes almon and the chachamim in the first case of the Mishnah is who Reuben signed as a witness of the transaction. So if he was a diamond on the basis that certified the document, that does not erode his ability to later on claim that the field was stolen from him. Why, Rabbi Rothschild? This is actually fascinating. Tani Rabbi Chia, Ein ha'edim chosim al hashtar ela im kein karol. Aval, on the base, Aval hadayonu chosmin aval pi shelo karol. We'll say absolutely incredible. When you witness a transaction, right? When you sign as an aid, we'll say, what are you signing on? What are you signing on? You're signing on the validity of the transaction. Right? That's what you're signing on. That I witness this transaction. This transaction is binding, valid, and legal. When you're a dayan for kiyum shtaris, they'll say, what are you certifying? What are you certifying? Signatures. You are not certifying the transaction. In fact, the dayan, sometimes by kiyum shtaris, the dayanim aren't even reading what's in the document. Right? Because I'm not certifying the transaction. I have no idea about the transaction. Kiyum shtaris is there just simply to certify the signatures on the document itself. But it has nothing to do with it. It's so fascinating. So fascinating. So you could have a situation of Kiyum shtaris, which makes sense, I will say, because otherwise, Kiyum shtaris requires a whole certification of the transaction. Then what's the point of the shtar? And what does the shtar do? The shtar, right? The edus on the shtar locks in the transaction. Kiyum shtaris certifies the signature. So this is incredible. So we'll say in a case where Reuben was a dying for kiyum shtar. So now let's play this out, right? So Levi sells a field to Shimon, and then they draw the document, and now they want to bring the document to Beis Din for certification. Reuben is one of the dayanim on the Beis Din to certify. Right? Reuben's Beis Din certifies the document, and then after it's certified, Reuben says to Shimon, by the way, the field is stolen from me. Everyone agrees in that case, Reuben has a valid claim. When we say Reuben has a valid claim, obviously saying something was stolen from you is not a claim. Right? I mean, it's a claim. What it means is Reuben now has the right to what? Pursue that claim. Right? So again, why? And everyone agrees in that case. Everyone agrees in that case. Why? Because Reuben's acting as a guy for Kiyum Shtaros has nothing to do with the transaction. All Reuben was doing was just saying, oh yeah, the signatures, we can say, we can speak, you guys recognize the signatures, fantastic. Sign it up, right? And then we're done. Certified, we're done. So everyone agrees in that case, it in no way erodes his claim to go ahead and pursue the stolen claim, the claim that the land was stolen from him. Now, Sha'in came, when he's a witness to the actual transaction, sale, from Levi to Shimon. In that case, again, part of signing on a shtar is what? You are claiming the transaction itself is valid. But come say, you claim the transaction is valid, you can't go ahead and now claim that same parcel is stolen from you. Admo says, yes, I can. The transaction was valid. In other words, yes, Levi sold to Shimon. And at the end of the day, it's my land. Good. So says the Gemara. But I saw a similar happen, especially the next case the Mishnah was, that I remember again. Right? So same case, but let's say, not same case. In this case, Shimon the purchaser, Shimon the purchase confessed the property, we call it parcel A. Shimon is selling parcel B and uses parcel A to identify the borders of parcel B. Reuben himself signs on that shtar as well, or not as well, but Reuben sells on that shtar. The Mishnah says everyone agrees that after he sells on that shtar, he no longer has the right to pursue anything that belongs to him. That parcel is stolen. That's only true. Rashi said, "Lo shana la'achad, da'af b'nafet masnisin siman la'achad, aval aso hamuchzak ba siman li'atzmo shel Reuben za'ora ala." So listen to this. That's only true when what? When Shimon is selling the parcel to someone else. What happens if Shimon is selling the parcel to Reuben himself? Shimon is selling parcel B to Reuben. And now happens to be in that sale, Shimon uses parcel A, which is the contested property, as a border, as a border identification. But ultimately, in that case, even though Ruvain, right, even as simple said, Ruvain did not go ahead and lose out on his ability to reclaim parcel A. Why? The Amar, even delay, because he would say, if I would not agree to this, they'll have a masculine language to you. Then ultimately, again, Shimon did not side with the path. In other words, I will say, the concern over here is that if Shimon knows that Reuben is going to be claiming parcel A, he's going to be reticent to what? Sell a parcel B. So Shimon, right, Reuben wants to buy parcel B. If I lodge my complaint now, then I'm not going to get parcel B. And certainly, again, leaving aside parcel A, so the Gemara says, "My is the so what could Reuben have done? He violated the Mema Moga. So maybe, like I said, maybe what Reuben could have done is that before he purchases parcel B from Shimon, he put aside it. That's all you guys have. I'm purchasing parcel B from Shimon. In the transaction, Shimon is saying that parcel B, right, borders on Shimon's other part, so parcel A. Guys, I just want to tell you, Reuben saying this is like a sidebar. I'll tell you guys, we might also don't not saying anything now. He's not allowed to this transaction. Maybe that's what we should say. Make him a go, right? Let him go. Someone says, yeah, that'll work really well. Chavra is like the Chavra is like. This is good. Like your friend has a friend. The friend of your friend has a friend. Which I will say is another way of saying, don't rely on any confidentiality. Right? So the nice again, if Reuben says something, so to speak, in confidence to the witnesses, they're going to say something, and what's going to happen? It's going to cause the whole transaction about partially to fall to jeopardy. Good. You might say as follows. So, cover is like Ahu Dasa similar Achar. So we'll say, now listen to this. In this case, we'll say so the case over here is, so let's go back. So we'll say, so this is just a unique group. So remember, let's go back. The Mishnah said that in a case where Reuben is now signs on a shtar, right, is a witness to a document where Shimon is selling parcel B to another party, but in parcel B he's using parcel A, the contested parcel, as one of the borders. And Reuben signs on that document. Reuben gives up his right to further any more claim parcel A. That's only true that now if I gives a qualification. That's true if Shimon was selling it to another party. But if Shimon was selling it to Reuven himself, so Reuven doesn't object to the use of parcel A as a border, that's because Reuven doesn't want to call into jeopardy the whole transaction. Fine. So listen, I go back to the original case. Who does us in law? So let's select the Mishnah's original case. Right? So the Mishnah's original case. So Allah say now, so Reuven is paid on the shtar where Shimon is selling parcel B using parcel A as a border. So what happens? Here are the shaman. So let's say after the transaction happens, now what happens? So Reuben claims, by the way, parcel A is mine. Parcel A is mine. But what happened? Shocking. Then he died. Reuben died. Right? So Reuben died. Right? Right? Reuben died after raising the objection to the ownership of parcel A. Okay. Yeah. What happens? The Oki Apotroph. Let's say, so now again. So after Reuben passed away, right? Either Reuben made provisions for this beforehand, or the Basin appointed an apotropos. Now there's an executor of Reuben's estate. Okay. So Asa Apotropos coming to Abaye. So the apotropos came before Abaye. Amarle saw a similar. So this is now what happens. The apotropos is coming. And why is he coming? The apotropos is saying, listen, before Reuben died, Reuben claimed that field A belonged to him. So the apotropos says, I am coming follow up on that claim. I'm coming to follow up on that claim. Okay, so Abai says, listen, Abai says, there's no claim. It's an explicit Mishnah. Somebody saw similar after, even as Sekuso. We already learned this case. We learned this case. Reuben signed onto this document where Shimon used field A as a border identification for field B. And the Mishnah says, once you do that, you go ahead and you relinquish all of your rights. Nothing more to talk about. To which the apotropis says, you're right, but Amar Hava Avason Yasin Kayim of the time the Amar Helen Efarasi Sila. Very interesting. So I will say, so the apotropis says, if Reuben was still alive, Reuben would say yes. I agree. I signed up for a document where Reuben used field A as a border to field B. It's really the only thing I was agreeing to was that perhaps Shimon owns a narrow strip of field A. A narrow strip of field A. That's what he owned. That's what he owned. Anyway, Shapir comment says because that's a good kind. Rabbi Yochanan in Chava Aman Kalan Akara Sisi Locha Ne'aman. So we'll say it's actually very interesting. Very interesting. That the claim over here is that Halach Alamaisa, right? That if I go ahead and Rabbi Yochanan says, let's say I sold you a field, right? The field is mine, and the only thing I sold you in that field was the narrow strip. Such a claim could actually be so the Gemara is supposed to see what's happening over here. So in other words, Reuben signed on this document that where Shimon was selling a field to another party, Shimon was selling field B. The field B was sold with a border identification of field A. Reuben signed on it. After Reuben signed on it, the transaction happened. Reuben said, by the way, field A is mine. It was stolen from me by Levi. After that, Reuben dies. Apotropis comes along and tries to settle up the affairs of the state, becomes Rabbi. And Apotropis, listen, Reuben claimed the stolen field was his. Rabbi says, that's fine, field A was his. Rabbi says, that's fine, but it's a Mishnah. Right? So Reuben signed on that document. That document using field A as a border for field B, he abdicated all rights to the field. To which the Apotropis says, no, perhaps if he was here, would claim all Shimon really owns is that field is just a narrow strip. That's what he was identifying as the border. To which Abai says that's a good kind of. But ultimately again, you still should have to go ahead. So in other words, now Abai says the Apotropis, even if that's a good claim, so that's fine, but you still have to leave in Shimon's possession a narrow strip. So Havi Alei with Chagitikah. So we'll say, here's the problem. On the narrow strip, there was a line of entries, which made that narrow border strip pretty valuable. So Gemara says, so Amar Avun Yasmikayim Havatoim Va'amar Kazarti V'Lakati. This is great. It's the Apotropis, by the way. The Apotropis says, if Reuben was alive, he could claim while it's true that I sold that border strip back to Shimon. I then subsequently repurchased it. Abai says the truth is Zok already Shaker Kabbalah. Saying good. Then Rabbi Yochanan in time the Amar Chazak V'Lakati None of the So we'll say ultimately again Reuben were to claim I sold it, but then I repurchased it. You believe. And we'll say the reason that is because this is Rashi says Pesha Asar wa Pesha Hidra. In other words, we'll say the king over here says, look at Rashi Naaman. Here's the case, just to give this locality. Naaman, that Pesha Asar Pesha Hidra. The Me'achar Shish Eidim Shaisa Shalom. So we'll say the king over here is where remember Shimon sold the field. Sorry, Levi sold the field to Shimon. Reuben, and then again it gets more complicated. But now what happens? So now you have Reuben. Sorry. Now you have Shimon. Bring it all together. Here we go. Bring it all together. You have right, Levi selling the field to Shimon. Field A. Okay, fine. Now what happens? Shimon sells field B to another party. But in that transaction, he uses field A as a border identification. Ruvain signs on that shtar, that bill of sale that Shimon makes for the party of field B. Afterwards, what happens? Shimon, so Ruvain says, field A is mine. It was stolen from me by Levi and sold to you, Shimon. So remember again, street halacha in the Mishnah is we don't believe Ruvain. You sign on that document, we don't believe. I will say, in this case, it's becoming a bit more complicated. In this case, what happens is Ruvain goes ahead and claims that those are stolen from him. Not only that, Ruvain brings witnesses. He brings Avis. That's Rashi telling the blank here. He brings witnesses. And I will say, after he goes in and brings witnesses, what happens? He dies. He died. Okay, now what happens? Apotropos comes to Abaye. Apotropos says, listen, I'm here to help on Ruben's claims. Abaye says, there is no claim. It's a Mishnah. Ruben signed a document. Apotropos says, but he has Eidos. Abaye says, go on second. Essentially, the Eidos is negated in the face of what? Ruben's signature on that. In other words, once Ruben signs on that document, he effectively signs away his rights. Here's the Apotropos says, no. What you understand is he actually went ahead and sold back, right? He sold to Shimon a strip of land. Okay. So now what you're telling me is when Reuben signed the document, he wasn't yielding his rights to the rest of the field. What was he acknowledging? That Shimon owns a strip of land of field A that borders on field B, but that in no way is yielding his rights to the rest of field A. That's good. But Abaye says, okay, that's fine, so you can pursue your claim on the rest of field A. But what? But you have to go ahead and at least leave in Shimon's possession what? The strip of land. To which Apotropos says, but 1 second. He's going to the story. Reuben bought back the strip of land from Shimon. He bought it back. To which Abaye says, the Jew says, why? He's going to say, this is a pasha, also a pasha with the why. Because the only way he knew about the sale was how? Was through Reuben. Right? In other words, right through Reuben. We didn't know about the sale. Without the sale, all you would have is what? Is Abe was saying that the mice of the field was stolen from Reuben. So now Reuben's sort of, because Apotropos is telling us that a sale happened of the strip. Now Reuben is further qualifying and telling us after the sale occurred, Reuben bought it back from Shimon. It's a pesha, also in which case Reuben / the Apotropos should be believed. It turns out that Reuben should really be able to walk away, assuming he could prove his claim that he should really be able to walk away with the field in its entirety, including the strip of palm trees. Incredible. Rabbi, so what's the takeaway from this story? Rabbi, I man the mocha Apotropa, Dokim he had Juadal Apotropa, this was the asking. Because the entire takeaway is you got to get an Apotropa like this. Right there, I was like, this is you gotta surround yourself with good people. Like this Apotropos Abaye says knew exactly what he was doing. Good. So I will say, so for our purposes, Allah for the nice son. How do we positive? So I will say this is a complicated case. That is a very complicated case. Remember again, we'll say what we have essentially embedded in this case is a couple of different cases. Just because I'm just going to tell you quickly. But I'm a paskin. This is in Hilchos towing the knit on Eric Tes Zayin Halachas Aleph and Beis. We don't. I'm not gonna have time for everything. I'm gonna leave out the Kalan case. I'm just gonna give you the Mishnah. Here it is. Ruben Shemacha the Shimon Sada. Ruben sent the Ruben sold the field to Shimon. V'haya Levi Me'evi Ashtaki. Rambam changes the name. So I'm going to keep it like he had it, right? So we'll say, so Levi sold the field to Shimon, and Reuben was one of the witnesses on the shtar. And what happens? Subsequently, right? Reuben claims after the transaction occurs. Reuben claims that what? That Allah Alamaisa, Levi stole it from me. Aim Shomer. The Rambam passes like the No. Even though I remember again, you're going to claim, yes, I signed on it because I wanted it to go from Levi to Shimon because I feel a better chance getting my field back from Shimon and from Levi. The Rambam says, case closed. Halacha l'maisa, right? Halacha l'maisa. There's absolutely nothing to talk about once you are party to the transaction, right? Once you are a witness on that shtar, you have effectively ceded and yielded any rights that you have to bring that field as your own. However, the Rambam says, if Reuben acted as a dyer for he or she, thus he does not yield or seize any future rights. Again, going back to the distinction of the Gemara. But Allah Maisa, an aid certifies the transaction. A dyer only certifies signature. So everyone will say, Allah Maisa, we don't pass like Al-Mu'min is Mishnah, we pass like that. There's much more. Again, Hilchos Kohen Nitan, Parak Zayin, Halachos Aleph and Beis. Take a look at it at your own. A lot more interesting ideas, but that's the halacha of it. So good. Mishnah, quickly. Mish halacha Medinas Hayam ve'il Derech Sadeu. I say again, it just gets better. Listen to this case. And I will say, by the way, you ask yourself, what does this have to do with Subas? So first of all, it's so good, so who cares? Right? That's answer number one. That's answer number one. So I will say, so remember again. The reason, just so you know, in all seriousness, the reason why we're doing this is because, remember, the way this parak started off were with the rulings of Admon and Hanan. And remember, again, it started off with a discussion about Mizonos, that's which is Ksubas. Now, I will say we're just going through all of their rulings. Watch, this is a great case. Misha, Allah, when the DSS, we'll say, watch this case. Reuben goes overseas. Now, Reuben owns a field. Now, we'll say, enough, the case over here is Reuben's field is landlocked, which means that the only way he was ever able to get into his house, he had a right of way. He had a right of way with someone. So what happened? So Misha, so let's say, so now what's the problem? He comes back, he's been away for a while. He can't remember the right of way. Where is my right of way to get into my field? And of course, as one can imagine, none of the neighbors are being forthcoming. Right? No, because obviously no one wants to think about that. No one wants to give up that, right? So Omer, Nilech lo b'ktsara. Admo says, look, since we have to use logic, figure out what is the shortest way to get into this field, and let's assume that was the previously established right of way. The Chum say no. Yikna lo b'derech b'mei amana or yifach ba'avim. You have a choice. Either go ahead and pay $1 to whoever's willing to negotiate with you, or fly. Right? In other words, it's right, or fly. Figure out a way to fly. Right? So again, this is actually Chum say, listen, Ruben, you went overseas, you lost your information. The burden is on you. So pretty much, again, no one has to do anything for you. So you're going to have to figure out a way to negotiate the $1 right of passage. Let's analyze. So my time with the Rabbanon, Shabbat Gaman. So I don't understand. What's the logic of the Rabbanon? The reason why the Rabbanon's position doesn't seem to make sense is if there's one thing we know, it's that what? Ruben had a right of way. He had a right of way. Right? Listen, I'll tell you, the right of way. Even today, the right of way agreements are like, you think it should be the simplest part of a real estate transaction. It's incredible how complicated right of way agreements are. It's fascinating. In any event, so says, as far as I understand, obviously he has a right of way. This was his field. He used the field. He was getting in and out of his field, so there was a right of way agreement. So Admon is saying, listen, logically, he's going to take the easiest path. So just assume that's the path he had. What's logic of the Rabbi? Or you go around, watch it. Don't shikifu us. I gave it away a little bit. I'm sorry. Shikifu are go up in the other me I gave it away. In other words, this is a landlocked field. There's 4 different people. So we'll say, what's the problem? What's the problem? The problem is, if you can imagine it, really comes back, everyone says, and I'll leave him with the Kiddush, it's so beautiful. And then he goes to neighbor number 1. By the way, was mine right of way through here? No, not here. Right neighbor 2, no, not here either. 3, 4. So we'll say, the problem is, each has the ability to deflect it to the other. So this is one of these interesting cases where we know a right of way exists, but Ruvain can't figure out a way to enforce it against any one particular party. If that's the case, then again, why does Admon say that Ruvain sees the shortest right of way? Very quickly, Ba'arba the Asamiklach Arba. So Ba'arba the Asamiklach had for the Amalo Big Debatzimat. So what's this to this? When you have 4 people who bought their own respective fields from 4 other people, or for that matter, 4 people who bought their fields from one person. Everyone agrees in that case, each party could deflect to someone else. Keep Gemara says, so keep where does not focus on? Listen to this. The Chad, the Asinikah Harba, so watch this. And we'll say, let's say now all 4 fields, all 4 of the landlocked fields, or the landlocked fields, are all owned by one person, right? So you've got Reuben in the middle, and all 4 of the surrounding fields are owned by one person. Rabbi say what? Bought it from 4 individual owners. So in this case over here, we'll call him Shimon. Shimon now owns the 4 fields which surround Reuben's field. But Shimon bought it from 4 independent people. Watch this. So Admon says, listen, Reuben can go to Shimon. Give me the right of way. You know that I own a right of way. You can figure out where, but you own. I own it. So give it to me. Listen to this. Rabbanan say, listen to this. Shimon can say to Reuben like this. Don't shut up. If you're going to be quiet. You are going to make problems for me. So listen to this. Shimon can say to Reuben, here's the deal. If you want to negotiate, you negotiate. If you're going to make problems, I'm going to return the land to the previous 4 owners. It's going to be owned by 4 independent people. And therefore, what they're saying, Reuben, you'll never be able to get your right of way. Why? Because each of them could deflect you to the other. So if you want to negotiate, you can negotiate. But if you're going to claim Magiali, right, something's owed to me, I'll simply go ahead and return the land, and then you'll be stuck forever. Incredible. So the Gemara says, I'm sorry. Who Damalu? I was saying quickly. Finish off the sugya. Who Damalu? A guy says, "Who Damalu? Tikla libras." Just listen to this. A guy, Reuben, is about to die. Right before he dies, he says, "I want my daughter to inherit the palm tree." He's giving a palm tree to his daughter. Azal Yasmi, saying, so Reuben dies, and his sons went ahead and divided up the estate, but didn't give the palm tree to the daughter. Azal Yasmi, so Yosef Lememar, and you must listen. So Yosef wanted to say what I said, and this is something as the Mishnah. Why Rakanah? The Gorna wants to go ahead and come to the palm tree, right? And each son could say what? Each one could say what? No, not from my portion, from his portion, from his portion, from his portion. I'm going to buy you meat. It's not a good comparison. Hassan Kochad Kochad Batimat field. So let's listen to this. here's the difference. They will say in the case of the right of way really only does exist on one field. When it comes to the daughter's right to a palm tree, that is a right that devolves upon all of their inheritance portions. So therefore, my takanasai, what should we do? What they should do is give her a palm tree, and then redivide the estate minus the palm tree. That's what should happen. Okay, we'll say very quickly. I'm sorry, just give me one more minute. We're going to stop. Actually, we'll say we'll stop over here for today. We'll just pick up with this very last piece of information. I tried. Okay, we'll say shkoyach again. Great week ahead of us. Emir Hashem, shkoyach. All right, everyone, have a great day, everyone. All right, I will say good morning. Let us begin. Hashem, a great visit us to enter into our last week of Masechus Ksubas. I want to go ahead and begin by thanking all of our sponsors for this morning. Should thank our Talmud Torah sponsors for the month of Tishrei. To thank Dr. Linda Weinberg, Sarah and Ricky Grants, Julia, Rena, and Eve. Loving them, dedicating a short this month, loving memory of their husband, father, and leader, Dr. Paul Weinberg. Eretz Moshe Ben Avram David. Thank Ayala and Sarah Steinberg for dedicating the shiur this month in this place of Yahweh Shaliba for Shuramis Bas Susha and the Adam B'Di Benzet in space of all of our fields in this Bible of Hashem. Hadika Flipping with sponsors. Avram Zeisman, the version of the Isaac grandmother, of his grandfather, Avraham Ben Aaron, Zvi and Shane Shear, in honor of the and Elliot Shmuel and Sheila Pepper in honor of Ari Lerner and all he does for the stream. Beautiful. Beautiful. I would like to thank our Dr. sponsors for today. Our Andrea Stellis in honor of the Bas Mitzvah of their granddaughter, Kayla Rose Bloom, where she grew the Torah and mitzvahs in Moshe to her entire family and all of the Beautiful. Beautiful and magical. Also, with that, let us begin. Very, very exciting. It was a very exciting July in general, and also to recognize it. Always be good when there's like this confluence of events. We're finishing this Sefta on Rosh Chodesh, so we're ending things, beginning things. Cheshvan. Cheshvan America started such excitement over the Masechta.